And if you're joining us via Spectrum, we're on channel 492. Art?
Did you want me to start?
Yes, please.
Okay, hello, and thank you for participating on what we intend to be the first of many webinars to educate our Flagler County business community on what financial resources are available to you through the local, state, and federal level to help minimize some of the impacts of the COVID-19 disaster. I'm Dave Sullivan, Flagler County Board of County Commissioners Chairman, and I am joined today by our moderator, Amy Stafford, President and CEO of the Flagler County Chamber of Commerce, will introduce our speaker. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Sullivan, and welcome to everyone else who's joined us today. We have about 60 folks on the call. I suspect many of you are joining from your living rooms, so welcome. I hope seeing some faces helps us know we're not in this alone. I suspect that a lot of you are looking for information. We're going to try to get your questions answered today and assist you as much as we can. I'd like to thank our partners today, of course, Commissioner Sullivan and Flagler County. Our friends here have worked hard to provide this network for us, and the law firm of Shimento, Dwyer, Hertel, Grant, who's provided our expertise today in the form of attorney Art Zimmet. Art is a business lawyer with a business background, and he spent the last few weeks doing a deep dive into assistance available to businesses through the COVID-19 crisis. Also joining us is our Regional Vice President of Center State Bank, Gary Lubai, who was on the call to answer some questions about loans, and he'll be with us during the Q&A session. So if you are not a business owner and you're seeking information about individual assistance, this is probably not the call you're going to find that out. So I would suggest that you guys hang up and visit floridadisaster.org if you're looking for individual assistance. Whether you've joined us by telephone, via Zoom, or our links on Facebook and YouTube, this call will be recorded, so everyone will be able to access again after the call, or you can share it with friends. And you can find links to the webinar on both the county and the Chamber's Facebook pages after this. So it'll take you to the YouTube site where you can also see Art's PowerPoint. Many of you have already sent us your questions, so we'll try to get those answered as best we can during the presentation. We will have times for questions following the presentation. So those of you joining via Zoom, you can raise your hand and we will call on you to ask your question. Please keep them brief. We have an hour and we'd like to get through as many of those as we can. For those of you who are just joining by phone, feel free to text me personally with your question and we'll try to get those in as well. My phone number is 859-321-3474, 859-321-3474, and we'll do our best to get to those as well. Any follow-up questions can also be emailed to info@flaglerchamber.org, and we'll be sure to try to get back to you on those. And of course, you can ask questions via Facebook after the call, and we'll make sure Art is available to answer those there as well. I think that covers everything, so we'll get started. I think Art has about 15 or 20 minutes of a number of items to share with you, and then we'll open the floor for Q&A. Art?
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. Thank you, Flagler County Chamber and Flagler County for putting this webinar together on such short notice. Everyone behind the scenes have done a great job. So let's jump right into the PowerPoint. And before we get started on the PowerPoint, I do want to recognize that the name of the webinar as advertised included the Florida Small Business Bridge Loan. We're going to go ahead and call an audible today. The Florida Chamber of Commerce is reporting that the Florida Bridge Loan is currently maxed out. There are rumors it will be extended, but I want to focus today on the Paycheck Protection Program because we know it is available and windows are opening and already open to apply for it. So today we'll focus primarily on the PPP, but if you do have questions about the Small Business Bridge Loan, you can feel free to ask those as well. So let's get started. Without further ado, here we go. So what is the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program? It is a non-recourse loan. It is a loan, and although it does not require collateral or a personal guarantee, which is what the non-recourse part means, it is still a loan. It is potentially forgivable. There's a formula that we will explore. The interest on this loan is 1%. It is a 2-year loan. Let's get those up there. And the interest begins accruing immediately. The payments are deferred for 6 months. So the intent of this loan is to bridge the gap while we all practice social distancing and stay home, and the economy is going to slow down, and this is intended to bridge that gap so everyone can keep the lights on and keep food on the table and keep society and the economy stabilized. So this is not meant to supplement the profits that your company was hoping to generate during this time. It's meant to protect the paychecks that we're using to keep our lights on and pay overhead. So who is eligible for this PPP? Small businesses with fewer than 500 employees. If there are businesses in the restaurant and accommodation industry, the limit is fewer than 500 employees per location, you're eligible. Sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed individuals are all eligible. You have to be in business before February 15th of 2020 and have US-based employees. There's 2 windows that are open to apply for the PPP. The first one is already open. It opened on April 3rd. That is for small businesses and sole proprietors. You may apply now, and many of you already have. On April 10th, that's this Friday, the window opens for independent contractors and self-employed individuals. I've been on a number of conference calls and asked quite a few people how these sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed individuals are being defined, and how do we indicate who can apply when, and I have not received any good answers. So if you want to apply now, I don't see any harm in doing it. The SBA will either tell you to wait or they'll process your application. Maybe Gary can jump in on that a little bit later on. So eligibility also requires some certifications. You have to certify that the current economic uncertainty makes this loan necessary for your business, that you do not have an application pending for a loan that is duplicative of this purpose, and that you will use the loan for the approved purposes, which we will discuss. Although the loan is available through June 30th of this year, the experts do not anticipate that the allocated funding will last that long, so please apply without delay. What is the maximum amount that you may apply for? That is 2.5 times your average monthly payroll cost. And how do we calculate that? So there are 2 time periods you want to take a look at. You can either calculate your average monthly payroll cost using the year 2019 or the past 12 months. And payroll cost is very specially defined by the PPP. It includes salary, wages, commissions, or tips up to $100,000. You can't include amounts over that in this calculation. The calculation also includes benefits, health insurance, retirement benefits, vacation pay, sick pay. All those are included in payroll costs. So you add all those together for either the year 2019 or the last 12 months. You divide that number by 12, that gives you your average monthly payroll costs. You plug that into your PPP application and it tells you to multiply that number by 2.5. That is the maximum loan available to you. And if that number is more than $10 million, then you're out of luck because $10 million is the cap. So that's how you calculate the loan. You will need some documentation to support your calculation, whether it's in the form of payroll tax filings, Form 941, whether it's 1099s, because self-employed individuals and sole proprietors are eligible. For those entities and individuals, we're going to use your net earnings instead of this payroll cost. The payroll cost is considered net earnings for you, and it's also capped at $100,000. So those documents will be required. Perhaps you don't have payroll filings, perhaps you only have a financial statement and bank statements. Work with your bank to determine what documentation you need to back up this calculation. A reasonable good faith certificate of tips is also sufficient according to the SBA. If you're working at a restaurant and your tips aren't very well documented, a good faith certification suffices. For S Corps and C Corps, the shareholder distributions do not count as payroll costs. I just heard this from the SBA yesterday. You have to use just the salary, wages, and commissions that you pay on the payroll filings that you file. So your shareholder distributions do not count. I have not yet heard about LLCs, but for S Corps and C Corps, shareholder distributions should not be included in this calculation of what payroll costs are. So, not included in the definition of payroll costs are payroll taxes. Please do not include those in the calculation. Some payroll companies, like I know ADP, has already done this calculation for you. There's an easy button you can press, and it will do this calculation for you and spit out a nice report. What can you use the loan for? Although the loan is calculated based on your payroll costs, you can use the loan for more than just your payroll costs. Although the SBA does require that you spend 75% of the loan on payroll costs, otherwise you risk it not being forgiven. You can include rent, utilities, and interest on your mortgage payment as things that you spend this money on. There is not a clear definition currently of what utilities are. Certainly water and electricity should count as utilities. Internet should count, phone should count. I don't know about things like transportation, so be conservative when calculating that and your expenditures on that. It might not be forgiven. We just don't have answers to everything at this time. So along those lines, be careful about how you spend the money and about how you document it. The government has appointed its own inspector general whose sole purpose is to audit this loan. And so you can expect that if there is a chance you could be audited, you probably will be audited. So make sure you use these loan proceeds for these approved purposes, or you risk the loan not being forgiven, or at least those portions of the loan not being forgiven. Okay. So also you can use it on tips. If you're paying your restaurant employees their payroll costs, which would normally include tips, you can use this to pay them what they would have received in tips during this time. Okay, how do we get the loan forgiven? That's the big question. So the loan forgiveness is reduced if during the 8 weeks following the loan origination date, there is a reduction in FTEs, which are full-time equivalents, or greater than 25% of wages from either one of the following periods. So if you reduce your FTEs, or if you reduce your wages more than 25% from one of these two periods, then your loan forgiveness is reduced. Doesn't mean that not all of your loan will be forgiven. It means a portion of the loan might not be forgiven. So those periods are February 15th of last year, 2019, to June 30th of last year. Second period is January 1st of this year to February 29th of this year. If you can keep your FTEs and your wages during the 8 weeks following the loan origination date as closely as possible to one of these two periods, then your loan, most of your loan will be forgiven as close as you can keep your FTEs and payroll to one of those two dates. Let's go and double click on that calculation. So loan forgiveness equals payroll costs times average FTE, and I've included 8 here because that's for the 8 weeks following the loan origination date, divided by the average FTE for that period 2019 that I had in the previous screen. You can choose the time period you want to use. You can choose last year, you can choose the January 1st to February 29th of this year. So that's items number 1 and 2 on the screen. So you need to keep your average FTEs as closely as you can to one of these two periods, and you plug those numbers in, and then that's how you determine how much your loan is going to be forgiven by. There's another way. So if you keep your wages close to 100% of what they were in one of those two periods, 100% of your loan will be forgiven if you follow number 1 or number 2. If you reduce your wages greater than 25%, then there's a calculation here that we'll take a look at. And so what we're going to look at here is a hypothetical situation using the number 239,583 as the maximum forgivable amount. I do not know why they chose that odd number, but here we go. Scenario number 1. If you have no layoffs between 2015 and 6/30 of this year, then forgiveness is reduced by 0, which means 100% of your loan is forgiven. In fact, this is old information. You only need to have no layoffs during the 8 weeks following the loan origination date. But you also have, the reason that June 30th date is in there is because you have until that date to hire back employees that you had to let go, and then your loan will be forgiven 100%. So scenario number 2, let's say you laid off 50% of your staff and did not rehire anyone. Then your loan forgiveness would be reduced by 50%, which means you'd have to pay back 50% of the loan on that 2-year term at 1% interest. Scenario number 3, say you laid off 50%, rehired 25. You can see there's a trend here. 25% would be the amount that your loan would be the amount that your forgiveness would be reduced by. So lastly, scenario 4, you laid off 50% of your staff and rehired everyone by June 30th. That is a scenario whereby all of the loan will be forgiven. So I know this is complicated. That's why I'm trying to get through it quickly so we can ask specific questions and entertain specific questions. Let's see, at this time, I do want to wrap it up. I know that there's lots of questions out there we've received already. And I'm going to start off answering and reading a couple of them actually. So we've got a question that said, we are an LLC. We only take a draw out when needed. Does taking draws stop us from applying for this relief loan? The answer is no, it doesn't stop you from applying for the loan. But as I mentioned previously, those shareholder distributions cannot be used to calculate your payroll costs. If you have any questions after this, you can contact me at the following contact information. Another question. I already laid off 10 employees. Can I recall them and apply for the PPP? Yes, we saw that you can do that. Can we include commissioned sales reps with our salaried employees for calculating the loan amount? Yes, you can do that, up to $100,000. Next question. Since all of this, 2 employees have opted to stay home and 1 just got another job. How does this factor in? So as we looked at the calculation, the individual that is no longer working for you is going to reduce the amount that your loan is forgiven by. Although if you include their payroll in the payroll cost, you'll get that amount of money from the loan. Just hang on to it and you can pay it back with that amount of money. Okay. Next question. Am I required to pay employees that are choosing not to work? No, there is nothing in the Act or the PPP that says that you have to do that. The intent of the PPP is to stabilize the economy, stabilize society, so that people can stay home, so we're not spreading the COVID germ and virus around. You do not need to hire new employees to maintain those numbers. If you keep them on the payroll and pay them, that's what the PPP wants you to do, and your loan will be forgiven by that amount. Next question. Do I ask my employees that are opting to stay at home to sacrifice their position and collect unemployment? I'd rather retain my current employees if possible, and that is what this loan intends for you to do. You can retain them, and you can also pay their health insurance benefits and their retirement benefits. That's what this loan is supposed to be used for. Next question. We own a restaurant and are now running it with half of our staff every day. Because of this, every employee's hours are cut almost in half for the week. Do I still pay the employees what they would receive from their average payroll check? Yes. You've read that 75% of the PPP loan must be used for payroll in order to be forgiven. That is true. So you still want to pay them their payroll? It's 2.5 because it'll give you 8 weeks of payroll, and then that 0.5 is for those utilities, for the rent, for the other overhead. That's what that's intended for. So next question is, the amount that is being issued is 2.5 times monthly average payroll. What is the amount of time that that money is to be used? It's to be used over the 8-week span following the loan origination date. Next question we got is, we own rental property. We are not incorporated and have no employees. However, this is how we earn a living. Are we eligible for the loan? Just heard from the SBA on a conference call yesterday. You are eligible for a loan. For the PPP, submit your net earnings to your bank, and that will be used to calculate your maximum loan. And of course, you'll have to document that. Next question. Every bank that does SBA says they're not taking applications at this time. Do you have any advice for us? Many banks are dealing only with their existing customers, and even then only with their best existing customers. There are some non-bank lenders that are participating in this. I would Google non-bank SBA lenders. There are plenty of them out there. Next question. Since we share the ownership of a company and we have no employees, we assume we are the employees when the online form asked. Is that correct? Yes. Sole proprietors, independent contractors, self-employed individuals, all qualify. And if you're the only 2 individuals who are collecting payroll in the company that you own, and you submit that payroll information as evidence to back up the max loan amount that you can receive. Okay, getting close to the end of the written questions here. Okay, here's an interesting one. I applied for a PPP loan this weekend. My payroll is about $4,000 a week. The loan app said we qualified for $8,700, which is quite a shortfall for payroll. How are they calculating what you're eligible for? That has clearly been a miscalculation. Go back, please, and look at that calculation. The slides will be available after this. That calculation is clearly incorrect somehow. I don't know where the math got messed up there. Lastly, I am a self-employed handyman, sole proprietorship. I file taxes every year. Am I entitled to apply for the loan? Yes, sole proprietors are entitled to apply for the loan. And even if you own real estate, you're also entitled to apply for the loan as of yesterday, according to the SBA. So thank you for hanging on with me during that whirlwind of a tour around the PPP. Wanted to get through to open up the floor to questions as soon as possible. Amy, will you be moderating?
I think that Jared's going to help us out here at the county. I do have a couple of additional questions, as well as maybe one for Gary Lubai. We've had a few questions again, and I know you mentioned this already, but I had a question from someone who's assisting a client whose financial institution is Wells Fargo, and of course they announced that they weren't taking applications any longer as of Monday. So again, if you all could direct folks into how do they find an institution that will help them out at this point.
Yeah, Amy, one thing I will say is I saw an announcement this morning that the Fed was lifting the cap on Wells Fargo. So it could go above the 10 billion mark. And so Wells Fargo may be back open, if not now, very soon.
Great, great. Thank you. Now, if anybody on the Zoom call wants to raise their hand on their screen, we can open up the phone line for you to ask a question. And again, anyone who wants to text a question to me directly, 859-321-3474. We are now live on YouTube. We had some technical difficulties in the beginning. The entire session will be up as a recorded session following this. And we'll make sure we email those links out to all of the participants. If you want to send your email address to us at info@flaglerchamber.org, we'll make sure that we can help you get it all worked out. So are there any other questions at this point? We have one from Felicia Cook, I believe. Felicia?
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for this presentation. I did send my question in by email, but apparently it didn't come through. We have already applied, and we're wondering if you have any information on the timeline for these applications. I know that on March 20, the governor announced the first 2 recipients of the injury SBA loan, and they seem to have happened fairly quickly. So just wondering if you've got information on the timelines.
I do not. Gary, do you want to weigh in on that one?
Yeah, I have not seen anything yet. I have heard of some responses with some folks that I know getting back with questions from SBA saying, do you have this documentation or something else? But at this point in time, have not seen that part. Plus 2, I've not been told really what to expect just yet, because I think none of us know really what that looks like on the other side in terms of SBA getting us the funds and then, getting that money out and stamping their guarantee on it. So I think we'll know more by next week, though. We should have more information around that piece, hopefully next week.
Let's see, Art, I got a question. Is there a labor definition of full-time employee, FTE?
Yes, there is. And I believe it's 30 hours.
I think that's right.
I think it's 30 hours is a full-time equivalent. So if you've got 2 people who are working 15 hours a week, that makes 1 FTE.
Great, thank you. We have a question from Catherine Boos. Catherine, well, there you go.
Mute myself. Thank you. So we own our own, it's Bose. We own our own small business. My husband has 1 other worker and he has had to cut her hours significantly. Is the recommendation that we use the payroll protection plan, or should this employee go for unemployment? And then can they do both? And then what are our employees as a business? We have to pay the unemployment, correct?
You can't do both as an employee.
I didn't think so.
It would be up to the employee to decide. There are some employees who are deciding to quit and to go on, this extended unemployment because they're actually making more money on this extended unemployment. However, the payroll protection program incentivizes businesses to keep employees on the payroll because it helps pay their health insurance costs, their disability insurance costs, or their retirement benefits. But if it's an individual who doesn't receive those, then many of them are incentivized to go on the extended unemployment. So that's their choice.
Okay.
Yeah, I would add to that, depending on the dollar need, if it's $10,000 or less, you may want to just go straight to the SBA website and apply for the EIDL grant, which essentially is a smaller version really of the Paycheck protection program. So that may be a better option for you, Catherine.
Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so if this employee makes less than $10,000 per year, you would suggest the EIDL grant for that person, or is that for our business to do?
No, I'm saying if that employee, really you're talking about for an 8-week period here, if that employee is making in this situation probably say less than $5,000 a month.
Okay.
Talking about 1 employee, I think the EIDL may be a faster route for you to take on that part.
Okay, so and basically, I mean, if she makes $10 an hour and generally works 35 hours a week, would you suggest her filing for unemployment? Because then we have to pay that, don't we? Like, if she applies for unemployment, then our business has to basically pay her unemployment. But if we do the loan, if we keep her on, because we're not firing her, we don't want to fire her, we don't want to let her go. If we keep her on, and then we do this, payroll protection plan, that loan could possibly be forgiven rather than us having to actually pay into her unemployment. Would that be the smarter thing to do?
If you use the PPP and keep the FTEs and wages similar, then that loan will be forgiven.
Okay, all right, thank you.
But then also too, that EIDL may be a better route still for you possibly, because it has a lot of similar functions to it, just a little faster.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Got it.
Amy, I've got a question that came in from David Fowler.
Hey, Dave.
He wants to know if you experience a significant reduction in revenue in the period defined, say 30%, but you can still meet payroll, will this qualify for forgiveness?
That's a very good question. So you must certify to be eligible for this loan that the current economic uncertainty makes this loan necessary to support your ongoing operations. If you feel comfortable certifying that, if you believe that to be true, then you qualify for the PPP, all things being equal.
That help? So Art, if this situation continues on past 8 weeks, what do you think is going to happen? What's your forecast in terms of additional assistance?
Oh goodness, Amy.
A loaded question.
If I knew what was going to happen, I'd be, I don't know, I'd be investing in the market right now. Who knows? Hopefully, if this situation continues longer than 8 weeks, we'll receive some additional relief because we do need to be staying home, protecting everyone. The economy is going to slow down as a result. Society will be destabilized to a degree if we don't continue to provide relief if this continues.
We have a question from Kat Friel with the Department of Economic Opportunity, who helped us with this call today. Katrina, are you there? Her microphone's on mute.
Yep, she's been allowed to talk. If she can hit unmute.
Doing it right now. Thank you. We have a question. Oops, hold on a second. Where'd it go? All right. A question from, I'm sorry, I'm having technical difficulties. I have like 14 windows open. All right. Question from Jacqueline. I'm a sole proprietor with no employees on payroll. I wanted to take the PPP loan to cover my rent and utilities at my shop while closed. But I read you must use 75% of the loan for payroll to have the loan forgiven. Is this true? Should I bother applying?
So as a sole proprietor, you can also use that 75% of the loan to augment your payroll. If you can document that you are paying yourself on your payroll, you have payroll tax filings, or as a sole proprietor, banks will accept net income, net earnings. You can use part of this loan to supplement your payroll. So you can look at your numbers and see if that 75-25% ratio is doable for you, but it's absolutely something to look into. And if you want further help with me to run the numbers with you, I've got my contact information available. Please give me a call.
I have a question that came in from Seraphinas here in Benel. Says, hi, I am assisting a local company to apply for a PPP loan. The company is only working with Wells Fargo as a financial institution. And since Monday, Wells Fargo's bank doesn't accept applications because they reached their limit in only 3 days. The majority of the financial institutions only allow their clients to apply. What are their other options for this company? Thank you for your input. And I think you kind of covered this with the expansion on Wells Fargo.
Correct. Yeah, they are. It appears that they will be reopening. If they haven't done so already, they should be reopening their window.
I've also heard that some banks are not working with clients that don't have a certain type of account or credit card with them. So if this individual does go to Wells Fargo and they won't work with them, then these non-bank lenders are also available.
Right.
Other questions? Again, we have a question from Ray Zapata. Ray, if you'll unmute your microphone. I see him holding his hand up. We'll see if he can, there we go.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Hello?
We can hear you, Ray. Go ahead. Ray, can you hear us?
Yeah, I could hear you.
Okay, go ahead with your question.
All right, so I just wanted to clarify one thing about both the PPP loan and the EIDL loan. Those are loans that I need to seek out through for both my restaurants. If I need to, through a loan institution such as SunTrust, is that what I'm hearing? Or can I go through online lenders?
Yes, work with your current bank to apply for that loan. They need to be an SBA approved lender. SunTrust is, I believe, and they will help you through the process.
Okay, thank you.
I've heard the application process is fairly straightforward, but I know that the banks will happily help you with all the documentation you need. Other
Right.
questions?
We
Go ahead.
we also have 3 call-ins, and what I would like to say is if you are currently on a call-in and you have a question that you would like to ask, you can hit *69. I'm sorry, *6, and it should unmute you, and you can ask a question.
Looks like we've got a couple of folks.
You want me to do that?
Hello?
Hello.
Hello.
Question?
I didn't realize, I thought we were muted here. I was just going to listen in. I tried to get in on this before.
That's
and a new email went out and I was able to get in. So I do have a question though.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm a sole proprietor here in Flagler County, and I've been listening to many different things and reading many different things regarding the PPP, as well as the other program, I guess, for businesses. So I'm just wondering, does something like that apply to a sole member registered LLC here in Florida?
Yes.
He said yes, as long as you have,
Yes, you are
as long as you
eligible
have payroll.
for PPP. If you pay yourself payroll taxes, if you pay yourself payroll.
We do, yeah. We're registered with the IRS as an S corp. So yeah, there's payroll taxes done, quarterly, all those things. So yeah, it would be my paycheck I'd be looking to preserve.
Right, that would be eligible. Just don't include the shareholder distributions in your payroll cost calculation.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And again, I know that, there's some sort of pass through and I'm not sure what the tax document is, but yeah, we have a very good CPA and, do very good bookkeeping. But I wanted to really find out about eligibility. I'm sure there are businesses that are more of a challenging space than we are right now, given the type of business we do. But I'm kind of looking down the road at, the potential of how long this can go and ultimately affecting our customers and our lack of business.
Sure. Any other questions? For those of you who have just joined us by phone, we apologize. We were having some technical difficulties when we first started, with some folks being able to get into the system and on the call. So if you want to go ahead and ask a question, if you've just joined us, we'd be happy to answer it. We have 15 more minutes to answer questions, as well as the full webinar will be recorded and available on YouTube. It will be on Flagler County, what was that, Jared? Flagler County / live?
Yeah, you can go to youtube.com/Flagler County, and it'll be there later today. Of course, it takes a little bit once this meeting is over for it to actually be posted, but it'll be there later today.
Great. And of course, you can always email us at the chamber at info@flaglerchamber.org, and we'll pass those on to Art and see if he can answer your questions there as well. But we're happy to continue to take questions. Are there others? If you're on the line and you'd like to ask a question, please go ahead.
I'm still here, and apparently nobody else is. So if I can extend that one further, then again, unfortunately, we've all just been bombarded with so much information that I don't have the proper terms in front of me. But I know one of these programs, that President Trump approved was obviously regarding payroll. But then the other being, the impact on the business itself. So if there's an overlap, should I be looking at one versus the other to try and mitigate any kind of cash flow issues down the road?
Can you clarify the question? Which loans are you referring to specifically?
Okay, so I understand the one program is the payroll protection program, and you already clarified that, sole proprietor, and you said it, obviously I could do that. But there's also apparently another government loan, if you will, that is focused towards businesses for ongoing, meeting rent liabilities, payables, things that are not related to a payroll check. So I'm wondering if I can apply for that as well.
Gary, I'm going to toss the baton to you on this one. Can you weigh in on this question?
I apologize. I needed to hit the mute button here. One of the things with the EIDL loan, there's two types of EIDL loans. One is up to $10,000. And in that particular instance, the way it's been explained to me is that if you apply for the PPP loan as well, that $10,000 would be deducted from the PPP proceeds.
Great. That's how
It is also intended to help keep people on the payroll, but also you can use some of those funds for rent, utilities, things of that nature as well. And really with the payment, the PPP, you can use up to 25% of that, correct, Art, towards rent and utilities and things of that nature. So it doesn't have to go 100% to payroll. 75% of it has to go to payroll.
That's correct.
We have a question from Nicole Blondin on Zoom. Nicole, let's unmute your microphone and you can ask your question. Go ahead.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I think my question was very similar to the last gentleman. Not being able to apply for the PPP through Wells Fargo had me worried, so I also applied for the EIDL. But a lot of those questions were just answered. Can or should we take both? But you're saying that one would be deducted from the other. I really don't think I need both. I want one or the other. Preferably, I guess, PPP, because our payroll times 2.5 would be roughly like $20,000 for our 3 employees.
Remember, the PPP can be forgiven if you keep the FTEs and the wages similar to pre-COVID periods.
Yes.
Yeah, and the EIDL is also a forgivable grant as well, the $10,000 one. There is a larger one under the EIDL program that can go up to $2 billion actually, but that has to be repaid and possible collateral and personal guarantees and so forth.
So, if the PPP comes through first, can I just cancel the EIDL or something if they call me?
I have not gone through that experience yet. I would think logically that you should be able to cancel the other as long as you communicate with whoever is handling that loan for you, that you have done both and so before you want to cancel the other.
Okay, thank you.
We have a question on Zoom from David Alphin. Hi, David. David's also on the Chamber Board of Directors. Welcome today. David, if you'll unmute your microphone, we can go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead.
My question is, we have a large number of, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We sure can. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
We have a large number of realtors working as independent contractors. Is there any special advice on how they would proceed with the PPP loan?
That is a very good question. So businesses that pay independent contractors cannot count those payroll costs in the payroll costs they use to calculate their maximum loan. The idea is that they're behind the business. Those independent contractors are eligible independently, and they should be applying on their own for the PPP. So they have to go through the process for themselves by submitting their payroll records, and that calculates their max loan amount. And so employees cannot include the amount that they spend on those independent contractors in their loan, so that you can't double dip.
If I may just add to that, if a realtor receives commission checks for payment, but doesn't actually go through a payroll process for themselves, would that disqualify them from making application for the PPP loan?
No, that will not disqualify them. They can count wages and commissions up to $100,000.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. Other questions? If you've just joined us by call, you can unmute by choosing, I believe that was *6. We'll unmute your line and you can ask a question. We do have a question on Zoom right now. I saw a hand, but it went down.
I think that was David's.
Ah, that was David's, okay.
Yeah. So the other phone numbers are open if any of the people on the phone would like to talk. If not, we'll go ahead and mute those. It looks like we got a new phone number that just came in.
Hi, Ray, I see your question. Let's ask the phone. Who just joined us? Do you have a question? By telephone?
Can I hear Ray?
Hello? If you have a question, you can go ahead with your question on the phone line today. Okay, let's go on to Ray Zapata. If you have just joined us by phone, in just a moment, if you'd like to ask your question, you're welcome to jump right in and do so. We've unmuted your line so that you can ask a question. But first, let's go to Ray Zapata on the Zoom feed.
Yeah, there was a earlier Art Zimmet mentioned about 25% of the loan could be used to pay rent, utilities, interest and mortgage, and internet. How about food vendors, suppliers?
No.
No. Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Maria Mendez with a question on Zoom.
Hi there, everyone. I was just wondering if I may ask a question. Is our workman's comp also part of those wages that we would put in also to determine the total wages?
It's not perfectly clear, but it seems like that's included in the benefits.
Good. Thank you.
Is included.
Thank you.
Sure. Other questions? Anyone who's just joined us by phone, you're welcome to ask a question. If you've just gotten on the call and have something you'd like to answer, like you would like to have answered.
Right. So average about $150 for auto policy or $30 for a motorcycle.
Anyone else with a question for Art at this point? Oh, here we go. We have a question from Melinda Rivera. Melinda, will unmute your microphone. There you go.
Hi, how are you?
Fine. Good morning.
Good morning. This is a question from somebody who's actually on right now. They got in a little late. It's actually from two different people. One is from Tom He says he consists of himself and one other person, a 1099 person. They're able to apply for the PPP, correct?
They must do so separately.
Separately?
Yes. The 1099 employee must apply on his or her own, and Tom must apply on his own.
Okay. Then the next question I have was from Sheila. She applied for, I believe, both loans, the EIDL and the PPP. And I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but I don't want to give her the wrong information. She's asking that that if she receives both of them at the end, she can combine.
Melinda, we lost your microphone.
As far as I know, they can't do that. Is that correct?
You'll want to repeat that, Melinda. Your microphone cut out on us towards the end of your question.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, my phone started ringing. I'm getting more phone calls. They applied for the EIDL and the PPP loan. They're asking if at one point they can combine the two loans to pay back at the same time, kind of like consolidating the loans.
There is no consolidating of those two. The 10,000 is a grant, so it's not even considered a loan initially. So that's a straight grant. So that would be my answer to that.
Okay. Those are the questions I have so far. If I get any other ones, I'll let you know.
Melinda is with the Flagler Chamber. Thank you, Melinda. We know that a few of you had trouble getting on the call or the webinar initially, so she's trying to help get those questions answered. Thank you. If anybody's just joined us by phone, you can ask a question. Just chime on in when we have a break. We have 2 Zoom questions. There are actually 3. We have another one. Let's see. Let's go to Cindy Delecki. Cindy is also on the board of the Flagler Chamber. Welcome, Cindy. We will unmute your microphone here. And
let's see, Cindy is having an older version of Zoom, so I've got to do some maneuvering here.
Okay.
In order, I'm going to have to promote her to panelist in order to allow her to talk. There she is. And we'll unmute. Hi, Cindy. There we go.
Hi. Yeah, Zoom keeps asking me to upgrade, but you always click later. So my question is, do we have a time frame? I've talked to a couple banking institutions and they say that they have, and I might have missed this earlier, but they say they have not heard back from the SBA about what to do with the applications once you submit them, or once you have the application filled out. The banking institutions are saying, okay, great, we don't know what to do with it yet. Is there a time frame on when they'll hear back from the SBA?
Gary, can you field this one, please?
Yeah, and I apologize. I had something come across here, so I'll open and honest. Cindy, could you say that question again?
Absolutely. Hi, Gary.
Hi.
So I've talked to a couple of banking institutions, including a credit union, and they say that they have not heard back from the SBA about when they'll be accepting the applications. Have you heard back from the SBA about what you should do as a banking institution with the applications once you receive them?
Yeah, my suspicions are the ones that you're referring to are not considered SBA approved lenders.
They said they are.
They are considered SBA approved lenders. Okay, then that one's a head scratcher for me in terms of why. Other than I know that some of the larger banks were out in front of us probably by 2 to 3 days last week. They were online on Friday. We really started yesterday processing, and today we have really started to process the thousands that we're getting. So I'm not sure what's causing their delays there on their end, but I can tell you most of the banks, including ours, just because of the sheer volumes we've had to deal with customers that have relationships with our bank.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
It's hard to say that too, because there's people out there that are my friends still, even if they bank somewhere else. Not many of them do that. There are a few, and but you know, you do want to try to help as many as you possibly can. But we're trying to come up with another online solution as well, that possibly for what Art was talking about earlier, that would involve a third party vendor, but we're not there yet. We're trying to handle our existing customers first.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
We have another question from Catherine Bose. Catherine, go ahead.
I'm unmuted now. Hi, you can call me Kate. So my question is and I think that you answered it earlier. I just need a little bit more clarification. So if we're going to cover the paycheck versus the loss of income, is one of the programs better than the other? And then so an EDIL is a grant and you don't have to pay that back, correct?
The first $10,000, is that correct, Art?
Of EIDL?
That's what.
Well, it's only up to 10,000.
Okay.
Right. Well, up to 10,000. So that's a grant. You don't have to pay that back, correct?
Right. Correct.
So while you have a grant, can you still apply for the PPP loan?
You can, but if you do get the PPP, the SBA will.
Did I hear you say that you're going to
They'll deduct 10,000 off.
Yeah. Okay, they're going to take away that 10 grand.
Yeah.
Does the PPP have a max?
I believe it is 10 million.
It is
10 million?
Yes.
Or 2.5 times your average monthly payroll.
I have that note also. I've got like 4 pages of notes now, so thank you. I just wanted, okay, so you can do both, but if your PPP is, if you're approved for both and your PPP is more than I heard somebody call it your EIDL, then they're going to take away 10,000 of your PPP?
That is my understanding. Yeah, whatever you get through the EIDL, they will deduct that out of
the PPP. So really, the PPP is just the way to go. Okay, thank you.
We have another question from Ray Zapata, and then we have an additional question from Katrina Friel.
Yeah, my question about the Paycheck Protection Plan loan, whether I have to repay it back or it is forgiven, the term of the loan. How do I handle that with my accountant next year for taxes purposes?
Oh, goodness, you'll have to talk to your accountant about that. It's a 2-year loan at 1% interest. The payments are deferred for 6 months. That's all I can tell you about the accounting treatment of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Maybe we'll do a call. Maybe we'll do an additional call with some friends in the accounting world.
Sounds like a good idea.
Watch for that. We can probably arrange that for you, sir. Katrina, go ahead. Katrina, your microphone's off.
We got another question submitted from Jim Coleman. I applied for the CARE through the SBA on the 4th. No word other than a confirmation number. How do I find out where we are in the queue?
Good question. I would say contact your banker.
Thank you.
That's an unknown right now, unfortunately, but yeah, at the first stop would be your banker. Yeah. Let's see, other questions. Has anybody joined us by phone that would like to ask a question? You can hit *6 on your phone to unmute the line.
No.
Go ahead. Somebody on the phone from 2482, you can go ahead with your question. We have somebody on the phone, I think, who's wanting to ask a question. The last 4 are 2482.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, can you tell me in regards to the $10,000 bridge loan that's tied in with the EIDL, we've heard rumors that this is the amount that you're actually going to get is related to the number of employees that are submitted in the application. Anybody know whether this is true?
I've heard the same rumor. I have not seen that anywhere in the legislation. Gary, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, again, I'm going to apologize. We're getting so much coming at us right now. So could you say your question one more time for me? I apologize.
Well, what I'm wondering about, I've applied for the $10,000 bridge loan that's tied in with the EIDL, and we have 2 employees, and I've heard rumors that the amount that you get is not $10,000, it's up to, and it's based on the number of employees. So as an example, we would get $2,000.
Yeah,
and I'm just wondering whether that's true.
Yeah, that it is correct. Now, in terms of the formula and so forth, I have not had any experience yet in terms of seeing how they actually calculate it. I don't know if they're using the 2.5 times the monthly salary, but you know, you'd have to go through that process to really see how much could you get, you know, on it. But it is supposed to be there for, you know, keeping people employed, rent, utilities, things of that nature.
But 75%
Okay.
spent on payroll costs. Is that correct? 75% on payroll specifically?
Yeah, well, that is under the PPP program, Amy, for sure. I haven't seen the EIDL as much just because of the fact that people are going directly to SBA. The one thing that I've been saying to people is if you felt like your need was 10,000 or less, though, in particular, or even, you know, between 10 and 20, is try the EIDL first, see where that gets you. They have claimed that they're turning those around within 3 business days in terms of approval. Now, how fast the funds get to you, I don't know. But I've encouraged customers that are in that box to try that route first and then see where it takes you from there.
And I have heard from my clients who have applied for the EIDL that it is a very streamlined and easy process. You go to the website and in 5 minutes, the application process is complete. So it's very easy to do.
Yeah.
The website URL off the top of my head, but I'm sure it's easily findable on Google.
Let's see, we do have a few.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you for your call, for your question. And we have a few other folks on the phone. Are any of you on the phone line exclusively want to ask a question of Art or Gary at this point? All right. Are there any additional questions right now? Okay, gang. Well, I appreciate everyone joining us today. Again, this is available on the YouTube Flagler County page. So you will be able to find it later today in full there. We are still taking questions. You can email those to info@flaglerchamber.org. And we'll try to get those over to Art and get back to you. We will also send an email link to those of you who would like it. Let us know at info@flaglerchamber.org, and we'll make sure you get the link right to the YouTube page there. Anything else that anyone wants to add? We are going to try to do some additional seminars. So if you have thoughts on something that would be helpful for you, please let us know at that same address, and we will do our best to make those happen for everyone. So we appreciate everyone's time today. Art, thank you very much. Shimento, Hertel, Dwyer, Grant, thank you for lending us Art today. And thank you to Flagler County, Commissioner Sullivan, and especially the Department of Economic Opportunity and their gang here for helping us get out to all of you all. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Stay well, everyone.
Thank you.
Goodbye.